While there have been some budget airlines that have arisen in Japan within the last few decades, for the most part the skies of Japan is dominated by the duopoly of All Nippon Airways, ANA, and Japan Airlines, or JAL. However, up to the early to mid-2000s, there was another third major airline in the country. That airline was Japan Air System, or JAS, which at one point, at its peak, was the third biggest airline in Japan. So with that, this video will be about the history of Japan Air System. While the Japan Air System brand would be much younger compared to All Nippon Airways and Japan Airlines, it would be the product of a merger between two airlines formed in the 1950s and 1960s. The first of the two, Towa Airways, was formed in 1953, and that was followed by Japan Domestic Airlines, which later formed in 1964. In 1971, both Towa and Japan Domestic Airlines merged to form Towa Domestic Airlines, which would have its headquarters at Tokyo Haneda Airport. Using a Boeing 727 aircraft, in 1971 it operated its first flight to Tokyo to Oita, and it grew its network of domestic destinations to cities such as Tokyo, Sapporo, Osaka, and Fukuoka, along with the southern island of Okinawa. Later additions to its fleet would include the DC-9 and the YS-11, Japan's first locally made commercial aircraft. For most of its early history, the airline operated narrow-body jets, but this changed in 1980 when the Airbus A300 was introduced to the fleet. Among the first routes the A300 was used to was flights to Kagoshima, southern main island of Kyushu. The area also happened to be a particular focus for Towa Airlines, as it introduced a new subsidiary, Japan Air Commuter, to focus on areas around Kagoshima in 1983. As it continued to grow, it began to expand its wings to other areas, especially with international services. In 1986, Towa launched its first international services, which were charter flights between Osaka and Seoul, South Korea. With that, this would lead to a change in the airline as it joined IATA the following year in 1987, before changing its name to Japan Air System in 1988. The rebranded airline would be based on Towa's fleet, though immediately it would introduce another wide-body aircraft, the DC-10. That same year, the airline introduced its first regularly scheduled international services between Tokyo, Narita, and Seoul. Over the course of the 1990s, the airline had an international expansion to destinations in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, along with introducing flights to Honolulu, Hawaii. As it still focused a lot on its domestic network, its international flights departed either from Narita Airport or Osaka's Kansai Airport when it was opened in 1994. By the mid-1990s, Japan Air System was solidified as a third major airline of Japan. Things would get more interesting with the introduction of the Boeing 777 to its fleet, which would have one of the most unique liveries in aviation history. Leading up to the introduction of the aircraft, Japan Air System launched a design contest for a new livery for the 777 aircraft. After receiving thousands of entries from around the world, the airline selected a design from a then 13-year-old student from Hokkaido named Masamoto Watanabe. The design would have a swirling rainbow wrapping around the fuselage until the end, and the aircraft would later be known as the Rainbow 777. Upon receiving the first of its 777s, the airline introduced it on flights from Tokyo to Fukuoka and Sapporo. Along with introducing a recognizable livery, it also became the first airline in the country to introduce ads on an aircraft livery, with the airline featuring an Airbus A300 painted with a Pocari Sweat ad. As it continued to gain a higher profile, it introduced another subsidiary, Hokkaido Air System, in 1997, and into the 2000s, it actually became the second largest domestic airline behind All Nippon Airways. However, even with its growth to prominence and its colorful jets, it couldn't save itself from the troubles that was about to come in the early 2000s. Like many of its aviation counterparts, The airline was hit hard by the September 11 attacks of 2001. The airline was particularly hit hard with lower domestic travel demand, as while the airline had an international network, its domestic network was where the majority of its passenger traffic came from. Along with that, the airline was also feeling the effects of the post-Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s. While Japan Air System struggled, another airline, Japan Airlines, which was also heavily affected, saw an opportunity to expand its presence domestically where it has been lagging behind All Nippon Airways. Both airlines would agree to a merger which was announced in 2002 and later completed by the mid-2000s. As a result of the merger, Japan Air System and its affiliates, including Hokkaido Air System and Japan Air Commuter, would be integrated into Japan Airlines, and with that would be the end of Japan Air System's brand. As a result of the integration of Japan Air System into Japan Airlines, the multicolors of Japan Air System no longer flies over the skies of Japan. Instead, the skies over Japan is dominated by red and blue, which are the main colors of Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways. While there are also locally based budget airlines, keep in mind that both of these major airlines also have huge stakes in them. Then there are a few other smaller competitors that do not even come close to the traffic that Japan Airlines and All Nippon Airways gets. Today, Japan Air System is a distant memory, faded into the colors of Japan Airlines. Though you can still look at some of the interesting liveries that the airline had over the years, including the Rainbow 777 and the Peter Pan DC-10. Being part of the Closed Airlines series for this channel, this was one of the airlines that I was thinking about making a video, and this is probably an airline that many of those who are from Japan or lived in the country before the 2000s probably have more memories and more knowledge about the airline. Some of them, the older viewers especially, probably had a chance to fly with the airline, so if you had any experiences with Japan Air System, feel free to share it in the comments section below. So with that, I definitely hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. This has been Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates from the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. Thanks for watching and have a great day.